Okay, we're ready to build another fire, but it's been overnight and the hot coals have cooled off. And now, before we build another fire, we're going to empty the ash drawer so you can see how simple this is. This soapstone piece here is unpolished, and it can be polished to match the soapstone all around, but it's to hide the ash drawer, conceal it behind here, and it's also to store heat in here and give off more gentle radiant heat. So every place around the door is all buffered so you don't have a hot surface to touch. It makes a difference that the only direct radiant heat from the fire is through the door. And then this is easily removed to expose the ash drawer, and we can take this out to dump it. This needs to be cleaned out at least once a week so that the ashes are not going to build up and block the airflow, because the airflow comes in from the sides behind here across the whole grate, and it allows fresh oxygen that's preheated by coming over the top of the stove. It comes down these channels in the side and goes back there, and allows more oxygen to get underneath the fire where it gives the best combustion. This is an accumulation of about a week's worth of ashes, and we're going to dump that outside in a metal bucket so it safely cools off for about a week, and then add it to the compost pile where it adds potash or potassium to the soil, and it's really good nutrients for the compost. Then we can bring it back in and start another fire. Okay, we've dumped the ash drawer and dumped the ashes out of it and put them out in the bucket. And now we can put the empty tray back in here and install the stone piece right in front of it to block the airflow. And the reason we don't want airflow coming in from outside here in the room is that it's better to get the oxygen controlled from outside through a tube feeding at the top of the stove, so it comes across the top of the stove and gets preheated before it's introduced to the fire in both sides underneath the grate. And it's better than taking room air, because we need the oxygen to breathe when we're living in this space. So that's why we have the air coming in through a fan forced in under the grate where it'll give the best combustion. We'll build a fire later. Okay, now in order to build a fire in this masonry heater, we already have the kindling in here, and I like to start it with either pine needles or pine cones or something that has fuel capacity, so it ignites easily. You can use fire starters of your choice. I like to get a kindling fire going before I put the logs in there so that it gets a good chance to ignite. Get a nice flame and then add the logs in a few minutes. You can see how easily the pine cones ignite. They make great fire starters. You can close the door as soon as you get the flames going, and it will actually improve the combustion. because it's getting air come in underneath the grate, and it doesn't need the air to come in the door. So you have a better controlled burn. You can see how much more alive it is now with the door closed. We'll give that about 10 minutes to get the kindling going, and then I'll add some logs to it in a few minutes. Okay, the kindling is burned for about 5 minutes. It's time to add some average or small to average size logs to it so that we can get it ignited. And then after that you can add some larger logs. It will take whatever you can fit through the door, but they burn more evenly if you split the logs. This will take up to 24-inch logs. That'll take a minute for it to ignite, and then we'll have another big blaze in there in just a couple of minutes. Alright, here we are in the back side of the masonry heater. You saw it from the fire door and the fireplace in the front. And it's bringing to mind a point that it's very important not to build a masonry heater on an outside wall, because you're losing all that heat to the great outdoors. It's better to build it as close as possible to the center of the home. And this back side here radiates even warmth out to the bedroom where this is located. I've used a large piece of soapstone that weighs about 750 pounds right here where the stove is on the other side of it. It's 4 inches thick, so it's a massive piece of soapstone. And then I've framed it with concrete block just to use it as a containment for all the soapstone that's around the stove and around all the labyrinth of pipe that starts up here and comes off of the T immediately above the stove, the first tee, and then between the first tee and the second tee there's a bypass damper, and that allows you to bypass the gases and smoke to come over and down here, down into the floor. And there's a serpentine section of 3 pieces of pipe passing back and forth underneath the stove, capped with about 5 inches of soapstone above that, underneath the floor of the stove. So you have maximum heat retention all throughout that area in the soapstone. And then as the pipe comes back up and joins into the second tee, I've also used soapstone around all those pipes in the entire area. And then above this section, where this is storing the most amount of heat and radiating it in all 4 directions, there will be perlite or lightweight concrete that contains perlite in it, so that it insulates and stops you from losing heat out the attic and to the roof. You want to keep as much of the heat radiating horizontally instead of going vertically up and be wasted, unless you have a second story and then you want to heat the second floor. But in any case, you don't need to bring the masonry mass any higher than about 5 to 6 feet. And then above there, cap it with perlite. So this will later get covered with tile and improve the looks of it and give you a little bit more heat retention, because you're increasing the thermal mass as the more masonry you add to it. That's what it looks like from the back side right now in stages. Okay, this view of the fire shows you how well the baffle plate works to retain the flames in the primary combustion chamber for a long enough time that you extract the most heat out of it into the fire brick, and then beyond that, radiating sideways as it conducts through the walls and heating up the soapstone around it. And those flames are touching the stainless steel baffle plate above them and radiating heat through that, conducting heat through that, to add more temperature to the smoke and gases that go around it as they escape. They're in the secondary combustion chamber above there getting more heat extraction before they race out the flue.